Hello, guys, and welcome to the Filbert Way. I'm joined with another special guest to talk about Tottenham Hotspur today. We've got the Athletics, Jay Harris. Jay, how are we doing today?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. But before we get into anything match related, we've got a lot of new signings, a lot of people making their debuts. It'll actually be your debut in the media box for Spurs in the Premier League. Jay, how we feeling about that? Got the pre-match nerves going yet?
I feel all right. Obviously, spent 3 years on Brentford and really enjoyed covering Brentford. And yeah, just excited by the opportunity to cover Tottenham in a really exciting era under Ange Postecoglou. Get to go on trips to Europa League games in all the different parts of the world. And I've seen a couple of Tottenham's games in pre-season. I was there last Saturday to watch them play Bayern Munich. So I feel like I know enough about the club now. I'm sort of just itching for the new season to start, really. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think that's the same with everyone else. Everyone's ready to just welcome club football back again. And being the first game, first Monday night football of the season, all we've really got to go off is pre-season so far, looking at games. Leicester's not so good at the moment, and as I know, Leicester fans are very reactionary. But how's Tottenham's pre-season gone up to now, and
Yeah,
how are they going to expect to play going into the game?
I think it's been a decent preseason. It's a little bit tricky to judge because, I mean, they basically only had one of their first choice defenders the entire time, and that's Pedro Porro. So on Saturday in the second half against Bayern Munich, that's the first time anybody's seen in preseason Mickey van der Ven, Christian Romero, and Destiny Doggy. Romero and van der Ven were busy at Europe international tournaments. Doggy's been injured, I think, since April. So I'm not too sure if he'll be ready to start next Monday. So obviously Tottenham have a very good squad, but are they going to be able to put their strongest starting 11 out? I'm not too sure. Having said that, players like Lucas Bergvall and Archie Gray, who they've signed this summer, they're only 18 years old. They look really exciting. Mikey Moore, 17-year-old winger, only turned 17 on Sunday. He's just signed his first professional contract with Tottenham. He looks much older than he certainly plays much older than he looks. And then the big one, which I think has definitely changed the feeling around the Tottenham fan base in the last week, is Dominic Solanke. 65 million pounds. Club broke their club transfer record to bring him in from Bournemouth. Richarlison, I think he scored 11 times in 28 games last season, but struggled a lot with injuries and other things. And so it feels like Solanke is an immediate upgrade on Richarlison. So that front three of Son Heung-min, Solanke, Brennan Johnson, there's a lot of speed, there's a lot of goals there. So I think Tottenham fans are now a little bit more relaxed that they've got Solanke in through the door.
I think yeah, going on. I think you've basically just taken everything I was going to ask you in the next question with transfers and stuff. But it seems like people say it's the impossible task, and I seen in an interview the other day, you can't replace Harry Kane, but how key was it for Tottenham to go and get a number nine? We know he can score goals. He's still got loads of years ahead of him left in the game. How important was that for Tottenham, albeit an expensive price to pay for him?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that expensive of a price. 65 million pounds. Okay, it's a lot of money, but when you contextualize it, firstly, he's English, and often, you see with Premier League clubs, normally there's a bit of a, for want of a better phrase, an English tax put on certain players. He turns 27 next month, so he's got hopefully three, four, five of his best years still to come. And when you consider how much some clubs have spent this summer on unproven Premier League talent, sort of a bit of a slide dig at Chelsea and a few other teams. I think 65 million pounds for a player who scored 19 times in the Premier League last season, when you compare it to other deals, it's actually pretty good. But it was massively important. I think talking about this on the Athletics Tottenham podcast earlier this morning, but the problem last season is that when Richarlison was not fit, Spurs had to play Son Heung-min down the middle, and it's just not what he's good at. He's not very good at holding up the ball. You want him on the left wing, cutting inside onto a stronger right foot or running into space behind defences. So Solanke immediately brings you a central presence up there. He's probably going to forge a brilliant relationship with James Maddison, with Brennan Johnson. Tottenham's archetypal goal under Postecoglou is the winger runs down the line, pulls across into around the 10 yards or the penalty spot area, and the striker finishes it. And Solanke is an expert at doing that. So I think it's massively important for them. And also, like you said, the Kane element of it, for the fan base just to feel that they've waved goodbye to Kane, and they literally did that on Saturday when he returned for the first time. They've now welcomed Solanke. This is now a bit of a new era. They can move on and get excited about the future.
I think again the fact that you said about the price tag. I think when you look at it on the front, 60 mil, you see 60, and obviously watching football for so long, you think 60, that's a lot of money. But again, like how much I'm sure was Richarlison around that price as well.
I think Richarlison was about 50 million. So yeah, similar.
It's a you even mentioned it yourself. It's just an immediate upgrade on Richarlison and paying £60 million. I feel like people look at a price tag a lot, but if you want a player, you don't just walk away when the price tag comes up. If you want to play that badly, you pay the money that someone wants. And I feel like that's what.
Exactly. And if you look at the players Tottenham have signed in the last year or so under Postecoglou, most of them are under the age of 23, so they're a bit more unproven talent or with less experience. And it sort of sounds a little bit weird to say that Solanke's got a lot of experience because he still feels young in a way. But he's a player who, like we said, is about to hit his prime years, has just come off the back of his best ever season in the Premier League. There's every reason why it still works out perfectly. He certainly fits them stylistically in terms of what he does on and off the ball. So if it costs you 65 million to do it, you do it. And if come the end of the season, Tottenham have, gone really deep in the Europa League, they qualify for the top four, then it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, 100%. I think looking ahead to the game, it's a week from recording, it's a week today. I was already kind of thinking, how is this Leicester defence? It's kind of on the bare bones at the minute. How is this Leicester defence going to handle Tottenham's attack? And adding Dominic Solanke into the mix is a completely different ball game. You don't have to worry about Son. Obviously, Maddison's going to be up for it, who we'll get onto in a minute. But I mean, again, I'm not sure if you've seen much of Leicester's defence in pre-season, but if we're going off of the evidence there, I don't think it's gonna be too hard for this Tottenham attack to break it down.
Well, I do feel for you guys a little bit because you had the joy of getting promoted back at the first attempt. And then straight away you lose your manager, and then straight away you lose Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who'd been, such a big part of the club for the last few years. And that's quite a significant blow for any team to recover from, let alone if you're focusing on building a strong squad as possible to avoid getting relegated. So I feel for you guys, but I think the one thing that you really have going for you is I'm a huge fan of Steve Cooper. I think he's an excellent coach who really knows how to keep teams very disciplined, very organised. It might not be as attractive as the football that you played under Maresca over the last 12 months, but you will be difficult to beat. We saw what you did with Nottingham Forest. Their away form wasn't great, but they were so tricky to beat at home, and I think that's what you're going to be. So I get that it's very easy to say, Tottenham have just signed Solanke, look at all this attacking talent they've got. But I'm sure your fan base will be well up for it. It's a Monday night game, it's under the lights. You've got a big 16 come to town. You guys don't really have anything to lose. The pressure is going to be on Tottenham. So I think it will be maybe a little bit of a tighter game than some people are expecting.
Yeah, I mean, part of me agree. The fan in me agrees, but again, like I said, there's a lot of fans from the fan base who have watched pre-season and thought they can't see anything else than a resounding Tottenham victory. But we'll talk about a couple of narratives that are coming from this game. We've got obviously James Maddison coming back to the King Power in what is Leicester's first game back at the King Power. It's like he's never really gone because he'll be back there. And obviously we've got Harry Winks as well playing for Leicester against Tottenham. I'm sure that'll be an emotional one for him. But yeah, how do you think them two players will impact the game specifically? Probably more so Maddison. We already know how he's going to play, but it's hard to stop when he's at full speed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Maddison is in a really interesting situation because at the beginning of last season, I've always liked him as a player, but I was really impressed by how quickly he just became the focal point of Tottenham's attack. I also thought it was a pretty bold move taking Kane's number 10 2 days after he left. But then within a couple of months, no one was really questioning that. I think it was against Luton, he got this fantastic assist where he turned the defender inside out. And Maddison looked like he kind of relished the responsibility that came with running kind of Tottenham's attack. And then he had that, I think it was an ankle injury in November. I think it might have been in that infamous Chelsea game. And he never looked the same after that. He'd gone from someone who was central to everything Tottenham were doing to, in the second half of last season, even when Tottenham needed to win games or were losing games and needed to try and get a point, was getting substituted in the 60th, 65th minute. So I'm not too sure if there was a lingering injury issue there. But then obviously he misses out on the England squad at the Yeah, it was at the Euros. I'm getting my tournaments mixed up. And obviously that would have been heartbreaking, devastating for him, especially because he never played a single minute at the World Cup. So Maddison knows that he's got a real point to prove this season. And like you said, he's got to sort of kick off as quickly as possible. And to do that against Leicester at the King Power Stadium will probably feel a little bit weird to him, but he kind of has to, from his own personal perspective and from the Tottenham perspective, kind of put any emotions he has completely to the side and just do the best job he can. And then with Winks, you know, Winks is probably someone who, because he's not the flashiest player, sometimes gets overlooked by the different fan bases he's at. But it's probably important that Tottenham fans remember, and I'm sure they do, but that he basically came through at a very similar time as Harry Kane. He might not have, reached the same heights, but he's still someone who came through their academy. And I'm sure the away fans who will be there on Monday will show their support to him as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure both of the players will get a great reception. I mean, Maddison leaving in not so sour terms after a relegation. It was all good. Do you know what I mean? But I think both of them will get a pretty nice reception on coming to the King Power. And it's I just wanted to pick up on something that you said about Maddison trying to kick on from the start of the season, being at Leicester. From watching him over the past 3, 4 years, this kind of occasion is one that Maddison will absolutely relish. Just come into his old team. And I mean, again, another thing that you said, I think there's been patterns where he's done the same as he's done for Tottenham. He did the exact same for Leicester. He'd start the season really well, get an unfortunate injury, and relies on his confidence quite a lot. And after that injury, he just seems to dip near the end of the season. But it's a shame because I think he did a lot for Leicester when he was there. I think he'll get a good reception when he comes back, but hopefully he's not too good on Monday. That's all I'm hoping for. But
I
lastly, I
do.
just wanted to. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, I do think it is also important to consider that Tottenham didn't have a consistent number nine last season. Richarlison was in and out of the team.
Yeah,
Son sometimes played as a nine. And then towards the final few games of the season, Dejan Kulusevski played as a number nine. So if you're Maddison and your whole game is about creating chances for strikers, it must be pretty confusing to change who the striker is every week
people that play
because Son is a
differently.
very
Yeah,
different. Of course, they play
it
completely
was.
differently, right? So it'll be intriguing to see how quickly he strikes up a relationship with Dominic Solanke. And there was a video that dropped on Tottenham social media over the weekend of Maddison sort of like gate crashing Solanke's medical. And straight away, they seem to have gone back quite a few years. I don't know if they've been in England camps or England youth camps together, but it seems like they've got a very natural rapport. So I can imagine that those two will get on really well and quickly. That could be a partnership that's pretty deadly.
But that's just how, again, it's so there's so many similarities. He's carried it on to Spurs as well. I think whenever we played without Vardy up front, like that was the
Yeah.
duo. That was where he recognised the most. But then when he played with a player such as Iheanacho or Daka, for example, he seemed to fade a little bit into the background. He still try and create chances, but you're just not as familiar. Do you know when it's just kind of telepathic? Like hopefully Spurs fans will be getting with Dominic Solanke and Maddison. But lastly, I just wanted to get on to we just saw Emerson Royale's left. There's been a fair few incomings. Any more outgoings? Do you think Tottenham are going to be busy before the end of this transfer window?
Yeah, so Postecoglou said after the Bayern Munich friendly on Saturday that he expects there'll probably be a little bit more business in terms of incomings, in terms of outgoings. Sergio Reguilon is surplus to requirements. He didn't go on their pre-season tour because he was allowed to explore other opportunities, but nothing's kind of come through with that yet. And I think it is also important to point out that Tottenham's squad has been trimmed a lot this summer. Some of these players were out on loan last year, so Joe Rodon, for example, but he's now officially left the club. Tanga and Ndombele's contract's been terminated. So the squad is very much more how Ange Postecoglou wants it to be. Royale is interesting because at the end of last season, you probably would have thought Royale had a better chance of staying in this Tottenham team than Jed Spence, but it's Jed Spence who looks like he's going to start the season at Tottenham and Royale's left. So yeah, the business they've done this summer is very interesting. They've sort of slimmed the squad down, and then the players they have brought in are players they think perfectly suit Postecoglou's style.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot to be optimistic going about into the new season, but again, we're all gonna start off optimistic, I think. But again, Jay, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it anytime. And yeah,
My,
guys,
my, sorry,
if
my
you
absolute pleasure.
no worries at all. If you've enjoyed the video, obviously go follow Jay on Twitter, follow him on Instagram. I'll put all his socials down in the description. If you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, follow all the socials as well. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching.